Hi guys, uh, today I'm going to use this September exam, APM, and I'm going to show you one of the common question requirement that has featured over and over and over in your exam. Okay, so and apparently some students still unable to deal with this. Okay, now we're going to look at the question 1 from September 2018, which you can easily download from the ACCA website. Okay, our focus is actually on the question requirement part 1. Respond to the CEO's request for work. Okay, respond to the CEO. So basically, you have to look at what is the requirement mentioned by the CEO within the case study. Okay, on the existing KPI and the introduction of the balance scorecard. All right, so now let's look at what would be the CEO's requirement. Okay, so I hope you run through the question. Okay, now let's straight focus into the question requirement. Okay, now I want to focus on the part where you are requested to suggest KPI. So the CEO is considering to introduce balance scorecard and wants an evaluation of whether the existing KPI covers the financial perspective. She has provided you with a draft. The draft was prepared quickly and they believe there's an error. Okay, this is our focus. This is where I want to focus. She then requires a reasoned recommendation for two indicators within each of the remaining three perspectives. She requires reasoned recommendation of two indicator. So reason recommendation, so that means you are required to provide justification for the suggested KPI. Okay, so that would be the very first thing. Okay, so make sure your KPI, your suggested KPI, is justified. Now, the next thing is when we suggest KPI, the very first thing, there are few rules you have to observe. The very first thing is when we mention KPI, it has to be measurable. Okay, because if your KPI is not measurable, that is a wrong KPI. Okay, so now the second thing is when you suggest your KPI, you must always justify why do you suggest that particular KPI. So with this in mind, you'll be able to get the marks. Okay, now I'm going to show you how we do it just for customer perspective, because if you know the technique to come out with the right KPI, it doesn't matter whether it's customer perspective, internal business process perspective, or innovations and learning, because they've subscribed to the same rule. Okay, so now let's focus on customer perspective. So now basically we are requested to suggest two KPI for the customer perspective. Okay, so the very first thing is we have to look at the question. Okay, we have to look at the question because the question requirement actually need us to suggest KPI, two KPI for each perspective, and this indicator should address the issue facing the business. So these are the issues facing the business, and we can see that from the story, the company is actually famous for its reliability. Okay, so reliability is an issue which directly affect your customer. Okay, so now we have to look at the KPI. We have to think about what are the suitable KPI that we can apply that can measure reliability of the service. Okay, now when we talk about reliability of the service, bear in mind you are providing security services. Okay, so one of the suggestion, is percentage, of cases handled by security staff without outside assistance. Now, when we are able to secure a higher percentage, okay, so it shows that we are able to provide reliable service. So now bear in mind, look at my KPI. The very first thing, it is in percentage. So we know one thing for sure, it's measurable. So the next thing is, when you say percentage of cases handled by the security staff without outside assistance, so how do the examiner knows that this is the correct answer? You have to justify. Okay, you have to provide reason explanation for the KPI. So I'm going to say that a high percentage indicate our security staff is reliable. They are able to resolve cases without outside assistance, such as calling up the police. Okay, so that would be one. Number two, customer satisfaction. Now, I believe it is important to achieve customer satisfaction. But bear in mind, customer satisfaction is not a good KPI because it involves subjective measurement. So we can always measure percentage of customer retained. Okay, so how do we measure the percentage of customer retained? We will take revenue from existing customer to total revenue. Okay, so I think it's quite clear. What I'm suggesting is measurable. So whether am I going to get the full marks or not, it depends on whether do I provide justification. Now, a high retention equal satisfaction. A satisfied customer is a returning customer. So a high percentage of retention equal to customer satisfaction, which helps us to grow the business, which is one of the aim of this company. So remember the rule when you are required to suggest KPI. A KPI has to be measurable, and number two, you have to provide justification. So I hope this short video will provide useful guide for your APM paper.